Hello, my name is Misty Harty, Director of Racial Justice and Gender Equity Programs, YWCA San Antonio. I'd like to welcome you today to our Wage Equity Business Cohort interview. Today you will meet some amazing people discussing wage inequality and how we as women and the community can end the wage gap in San Antonio. Before I do that, I do want to share some statistics with you on why this interview is very important to the women of San Antonio. Wage inequality refers to not only underpaying women their value and their work, but also underpaying them in comparison to men and the same work that they provide. Wage inequality has roots in racial injustice, and it's based on the work provided by enslaved women in this country, particularly in caregiving, including childcare. Today, 94% of childcare workers are women, and 40%, are women of color. It also has roots in nursing care, which makes up 90% of nursing assistants, and 36% of those are women of color. So when we talk about wage inequality, it is very, very relevant to not only women across the nation, but more importantly, the women here in San Antonio. I'd like to introduce you to my esteemed guest. We are honored here to have Gonzalo Soliz. He is a bilingual HR professional, currently serving as the SAHRMA president for 2022. He joined in, is this an acronym, Gonzalo? Should I be saying, how do you pronounce it?
You can say SARMA.
SARMA.
Or you can say San Antonio Human Resource Management Association. That's why we go by SARMA, because it's just too long.
Okay, I think I'm gonna go with SARMA.
There you go.
Okay, he joined SARMA in 2017 and quickly became fully immersed in various SARMA initiatives and leadership positions, including assisting the HR Symposium Committee in 2018 and serving as the Professional Development Director in 2019 through 2020. He retired from the U.S. Army in 2017, where he served 27 years as a Senior Religious Affairs Supervisor. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We also are honored to have Ernesto Escobedo. He is president-elect at SARMA. Am I saying that right?
SARMA.
SARMA,
Yeah.
Thank you. He has 29 years federal government service at the U.S. EEOC and U.S. Air Force. He has worked as an EEOC investigator, supervisor, and currently a federal mediator. Ernesto is an approved SHRM prep class instructor who teaches the Certified Professional CP and Senior Certified Professional SCP certification courses. Ernesto's academic background is PhD, wow, congratulations, SHRM-SCP SPHR, correct?
Yes.
And he is a senior faculty and HR university professor. Thank you both for being here. That is extremely, extremely impressive. Thank you so much. I have a couple questions here I'd like to ask you, both Gonzalo and Ernesto, regarding wage inequality in San Antonio, and then also your perspectives on what we can do to better the opportunities for women here in San Antonio. Gonzalo, I'd like to ask you first. How long have you been involved with our business cohort, and what made you decide to support us in that way?
So I initially became involved with the cohort when your CEO, Francesca Ritre, actually reached out to me. She asked me if I would like to serve as a panel member during the summit, the Wage Equity Summit that you guys had this past March. Mm-hmm. During the summit, I met your strategic consultant, Myra Juarez. Mm-hmm. She invited me to be part of the cohort, and since then I've been helping with the cohort. So just right under a year that I've been involved. I guess the reason why I joined the cohort is, and as she explained, and the mission that the YWCA has, is that I support the work that your organization does. As an HR practitioner, it's important to me. I value the contributions of employees. So for me, it's important that all employees are treated fairly, and that means providing equitable pay for employees. That type of pay has to be the type of pay that that rewards them for their contribution, rewards them for their education, for their skills, for their experience. So really that really was the driving factors to why I joined, because I felt that it was the mission that you guys support is very much in line with what we as HR professionals aspire to do, and that is to treat all employees with respect and fairly.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. And so then I'm interested in your opinion on how we at the YWCA, as we're trying to grow the cohort, bring more awareness about the cohort, and then encourage other people to join. In your opinion, how can we help other employers consider joining our business cohort?
Mm-hmm. Great question. I think that what you guys are already doing is you need to do more of.
Okay.
The advocating, mm-hmm. That's often very difficult work to do, but advocating for the need to bring an end or close the gap between the wage gap is very important. Interviews like this, I think, go a far way with like-minded individuals, like-minded organizations, employers that really value and have a commitment to close that gap. That keeps the issue at the forefront, right? So yes. Advocacy is very important. So I would say continue doing what you're doing, okay. Reaching out. You guys have a great website and a lot of resources. One thing that I would encourage you guys to do is to continue market those resources. The more exposure that employers have to those types of resources, the better it's going to be for the organization.
Okay, thank you so much. Ernesto, as the incoming president, what is your opinion on the wage gap?
Misty, thank you for the invitation. Thank you for being here. One of the thoughts that I have is that we've come a long way. We've made a lot of progress, but we still need a lot of work moving forward. As I read in the books where I teach courses in HR, we're about 83% for every dollar that a male makes. Said another way, women make 83 cents to the dollar of what men make. Mm-hmm. And of course, I mentioned we've come a long way because in 1964, it was at 46 cents. Now we're at 83 cents. So I see a lot of improvement, a lot of progress, but we're not dollar for dollar. And just by looking at the progress, it may take another 40 years before we have equality. And that saddens me a bit because we should be at a dollar for dollar, especially in this country, in the United States. So yes, I think we've come a long way. We've got a lot to do still.
Okay. Thank you for that answer. And when you put those numbers out there, I mean, it almost took my breath away because, when you consider how long it took to get to the 83 cents mm-hmm. per $1, mm-hmm. and then you do the math, you're like, gosh, mm-hmm. I'm gonna be long gone by that time, sadly. And so I'm looking at, the future of other young girls and the women that live here in San Antonio and nationwide, how much work that needs to be done. Gonzalo, you did mention advocacy and awareness, and so I'm interested, Ernesto, in we're talking about getting employers to join our efforts and join the business cohort. And as the incoming president, in your opinion, what are some ways that we can help other employers consider joining our efforts to end the wage gap?
Well, I think that we could certainly use our technology. Technology has certainly changed over the last several years. Social media has totally changed as well. A lot more folks are relying and using technology. We do that at SARMA as well in our programs, and so that would be one suggestion for the YWCA, to continue using technology, continue using social media to promote its purpose, its mission, and its vision, as other chapters do. As I mentioned, SARMA does that as well. Technology also could include Zoom, MS Teams, WebEx, all this. Certainly things that we have learned during this pandemic. We've learned that we can actually accomplish work in different ways. We don't always have to be face-to-face. And so to the extent that that's feasible and practical and helpful and so forth, I think that could be another very efficient tool moving forward in the future.
Thank you for that. Gonzalo, I'm interested in your opinion. How do you feel the wage gap impacts our community right here in San Antonio?
Great question, Misty. Well, as you know, the medium average income or the medium earning gap, for women here in San Antonio is over $5,600 per year. Sadly, that's money that doesn't get reinvested, doesn't get re-injected back into our community, right, into our economy. So that's money that employees, female employees, are not able to save. That's money that that only widens the savings gap between men and women, right? Because they're forfeiting this amount of money that they could be using to save, they could be using to invest, and they're not able to do that. So that's one way. As traditionally, one of the reasons why women, and there are many reasons, but one of the reasons why women get paid less than men is because they have to take care of family. They have the responsibility for child care, for raising children. When they do that, they forfeit many years, earning years, during the prime working years. Because of that, they don't have an opportunity to invest into an employer's retirement plan. So that is one way. They're not investing into their own retirement as much as men are. Another way that I think that it impacts is that sadly, because they don't work as many hours or as many years as their male counterparts, they sadly get paid, they earn less Social Security benefits.
Exactly.
And as we know, that Social Security benefits are based off of your average income earned over your working years. So that's another way that it negatively impacts women. All these pay disparities, they just exacerbate the wage gap, right? Studies indicate that women children of women who get paid less than their male counterpart, they're more likely to stay in poverty. Their children more likely to suffer from poor health, more likely to struggle in school. So there's a cascading of negative impacts, that derive from that. So I guess that's just a handful of ways, that unfortunately it impacts our community.
When you mentioned that women, because they are normally the ones who raise children, right? It's almost like they get fined, or it's a punitive act, because on the flip side of that, they're taking these years to raise our next generation and our future, but then they get penalized negatively financially, which then, as you pointed out, contributes to this cycle of poverty.
Exactly.
And so, also you mentioned something that I found very interesting, which was the negative impact on their ability for Social Security. And that made me think about the negative impact. If we pay women less, that's less money going back into San Antonio because they don't have the buying power. And so then on the flip side of that, when people argue that this is a personal issue, right? It doesn't impact me directly if I'm not a woman and or if I'm not a woman of color. But in actuality, it makes our San Antonio, our city of San Antonio, suffer because we underpay women. Women aren't able to put that money back into the community, and we're not seeing that revenue growth and what the potential for San Antonio's growth. So that was, I mean, thank you for pointing that out. Ernesto, question: how can companies take intentional steps toward ending the wage gap, in your opinion?
Great question as well, Misty. I firmly believe in training, right? And so I think companies should invest and do invest money in training their employees on EEO laws, right? That include wage disparity, understanding the wage gap. So I think that companies should continue to train their employees on EEO policies. Also, perhaps think about an affirmative action plan as a way to try to correct this imbalance that we have in wages. Is another plan. Again, I think it goes back to investing in our employees, investing in their training, investing in the understanding of the laws, especially those that are EEO. And I think just by my research and review in the courses that I teach, a lot of companies do that, but not every company is doing that. So I certainly would emphasize that companies allocate more resources towards training.
Okay, now we've used a lot of acronyms so far, and so would you just explain to our audience the EEOC? Because I think that's an interesting, I mean, it's an important one for people to know.
Yeah. So EEO is Equal Employment Opportunity, and that, of course, is opportunity for everyone, regardless, in this case here, regardless of gender. So regardless of female or male gender, that everyone have equal opportunity to earn the same wages, regardless of their gender, right? And so yes, EEO, Equal Employment Opportunity.
Okay, thank you so much for clarifying that. All right, Gonzalo, question for you. What are some ways the women of San Antonio specifically can work collaboratively with business owners and corporations, to help in the wage gap? So how can they assume some of that responsibility?
Great question. And again, for me, I believe that it goes back to advocacy. I believe that women are in a great place to advocate for two specific concepts. The first one is pay transparency. The second one is advocating for flexible working hours. So let me briefly talk about pay transparency. So by what I mean by pay transparency is the pushing to bring an end to policies that actively discourage employees from discussing their salary, discussing how much they get paid. If employers were required to justify in writing their salary decisions, you can bet that employers would have to provide a data-driven basis for how much they're paying their employees. Right now, we don't have that. But so enforcing some type of mechanism where employees would be allowed to discuss how much they earn, I think that would go a long way. I read about a study done by the National Bureau of Economic Empowerment, economic research. The study mentioned that the wage gap could be reduced by 30% if employers implemented some type of pay transparency policy. So that's one area of advocating for pay transparency. The other area would be advocating for flexible working hours. as we've already discussed, the among other reasons, the reason why women get paid less is because they have to balance, the responsibilities of raising children, taking care of children, and not just children. Sometimes family members, versus balancing their work commitments, right? So for that reason, if employers could come up with a way to balance or to allow flexibility in the working schedules, that would allow fathers or spouses, partners, to assist with the raising of children. That would allow women to devote more time to their work. But so that's one aspect of providing flexible working hours. The other way would be to provide better childcare options. All mothers will benefit from this, but especially single mothers will benefit from better preschool options. After school events for children. Those options would go a long way. Potentially even subsidies for lower income families, child care subsidies. That also, I believe, would help. But again, the pay transparency, advocating for that in flexible working hours would be two great ways of going about it.
Awesome. And then, Ernesto, I'm interested on your opinion. How can women in San Antonio work collaboratively with business owners and corporations to help end the wage gap?
Sure, absolutely. So as I look at the wage disparity and some of the reasons for it, if we look at traditionally, men and women have held different positions over time, and that is part of the reason why we have this wage disparity, all right? For example, in the senior roles today in this country, only about 5% are women in the senior roles in positions. For example, CEO position, Chief Executive Officer. And so if we look at history, what led us to that? Well, also, and I read about this, quote unquote, the motherhood penalty, when women stay home for having their child and the first few months, of child caring. Nowadays, of course, there's paternity leave, which men are kind of also doing the same or have the same option. And so, which by the way, I did that myself to take some paternity leave with my children. But nonetheless, if we look at time, just overall, traditionally, it's been primarily the woman, right, who stays home. Although the option now, as I mentioned, has been to men. So with that background, I think, to your question, Misty, I think that women can search out companies that are family friendly, right, as they apply for positions. Search out companies that have a strong equal employment opportunity mission, equal opportunity vision, right, for equality in pay. In this case, equal opportunity in every way, right? But of course, certainly with respect to wages. Yes. And also, I think that as we look to climb the ladder, or for women to climb the ladder, the same thing, right? I think it's really important for women, just like in every position, to collaborate, right, with other women. And for example, there's organizations that women can join and that exist today, right? That together they can collaborate and continue growing, continue climbing, so that 5% grows, and that 5% continues to have more representation of women.
And I want to just say thank you to both of you. The information that you shared today has been invaluable. I want to thank the audience today for joining us for this conversation and this interview. The YWCA San Antonio is very serious about not only ending the wage gap, but also educating the women of San Antonio to give them a voice and give them an outlet and to give them some advocacy to make policy changes and tangible changes in our community. I'd like to thank you, Gonzalo. I'd like to thank you, Ernesto, for joining me today to have this conversation. I'd like to encourage you to check out our website, ywcasa.org. You can learn more about our business cohort and all of the services and advocacy work that we provide the community. My name is Misty Harty, Director of Racial Justice and Gender Equity Programs. And if you are a business owner or a corporation, I'd love to invite you to join our business cohort. Please check out our information on our website, ywcasa.org, for more information on our business cohort and how you can join our efforts. Thank you so much. Goodbye.